Hello, friends. This is Nikki Pugh, aka the Gentle Healthy Traveler, and this is the Victim to Victorious Summit. I have today with us Trudy Messer. Trudy, how are you today?
I am great, thank you.
All right, it is so awesome that you are here. We are going to do a little bit of a deep dive. Let me do some introduction first. Trudy is a Canadian trained orthopedic physical therapist. And we'll get into what that is. Amazing. 24 years of experience with multiple advanced certifications, including Orthopedic Certified Specialist from the American Physical Therapy Association, a Certified Kinesiotaping Practitioner. You might want to explain what that is a little bit later, so we can get to that. And a certified functional manual therapist from the Institute of Physical Art. She's also an experienced registered yoga teacher, as well as a Yoga Alliance certified education practitioner. A lot of the stuff that you have on YouTube, really amazing stuff. And a lot of it is yoga moves, specifically geared towards different things. Now, orthopedic means musculoskeletal.
Correct. Yeah. So if you kind of think about the body and you divide it up into its systems, generally speaking, when you mention the words orthopedic specialist or orthopedic surgeon, orthopedic physical therapist, it's usually somebody that's dealing with the musculoskeletal issue and the nervous system. Someone who would be a neurological physical therapist would be someone that deals primarily with the nervous system first.
Okay. So you're looking at it from the musculoskeletal, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you only work with like ankle injuries or, you know.
That's accurate, right?
Okay.
So I'm a little bit of an odd bird because I live and work in a little bit more of a wellness holistic perspective rather than kind of staying stuck in the box of sick care. So as a functional manual therapist, which was one of those other certifications you listed, it allows us as physical therapists to kind of look at the whole body as a system and not kind of seeing an ankle injury or a low back injury or a neck injury. We treat the body as a whole unit and kind of try to rehabilitate it and make it as efficient as possible based on evaluating the whole system and not kind of getting stuck in the rut of looking at like a single joint or something like that.
Yeah. And you actually, in your practice, you actually, with your particular unique style, you actually might even incorporate nutritional advice. Right. And talk a little bit about that, how that.
Yeah. So as a more holistic based physical therapist, what I try to do is incorporate everything that I know that our mind and our body need for wellness. So I spend a lot of time with my patients and clients working on nutrition relative to their stress, inflammation, and pain needs. I work on teaching my patients not only how to sleep, but why it's so important for life and wellness. I spend time explaining to patients not only how to keep moving, but why to keep moving. So what I would say is, I treat the dysfunctions that our body falls into, a shoulder impingement or whatever the issue might be that person tends to knock on my door initially complaining of. But by the time they're done with me, my hope is that I've made them as optimal as they can be, both in their mind and body wellness.
That's awesome. You were explaining off camera that your journey is a little bit unique in that you're wanting to find more ways to really treat the whole person with your patients. And that includes some emotional issues that were going on. Can you explain a little bit about that?
So what I would say is, as a new young physical therapist, you're wet behind the ears. You're just trying to learn how not to hurt people and how to get them better. And then as years go by and you get a lot of clinical experience, what tends to happen is you start to see these pattern recognitions in patients. And a lot of times, some of the pattern recognitions that I would see would be in patients that had persistent pain patterns and chronic pain. And then you're like, but it's not just a back problem, or it's not just a neck problem. There's pain issues that are more related to non-physical components. And so, I'm one of those type of people that I always want to be asking the why and finding out answers. And so what that kind of did is led me initially into getting a yoga certification and figuring out, other ways of treating the body.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know, how does Eastern medicine and if we look at, yogic philosophy, what do we do in those areas and arenas, and what is Ayurvedic medicine and all of that. So as I started broadening my perspective, what I realized is I can't ever treat someone's physical pains unless I'm also addressing the mind-body connection.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I got and dove deeper into that, really what you start to understand is that the nervous system really is so intricately connected to our musculoskeletal system that you can't treat one without the other. And oftentimes you can work very hard and be relentless in working with your patient, trying to fix what you think is a physical pain and inflammation. But until you finally, put that icing on the cake and start working on some of their mental health capacity along with that, you don't really start to see them getting fully well. And so that's kind of what happened to me. And then I kept kind of pushing down that journey and seeing, okay, so what if I dive deeper into, certain components of the nervous system? And that's when I really started looking at the autonomic nervous system, which is the component of our nervous system that drives either our stress response in our body and our mind or our relaxation response. And so I spent a long, hard journey trying to figure that out. And then, taking time to say to myself, how can I effectively, as a physical therapist, treat my patients using these techniques that I've now gained and learned to treat the autonomic nervous system? And then I just kind of spread my wings and added that into my yoga practice. And that's kind of how Heal's YouTube channel came about, in providing kind of like a mix of physical therapy and yoga together in sessions to help people understand how to heal their body.
I love it. And so when you work one-on-one with people, do you incorporate that kind of mind-body, like actual techniques or movements you would do with people one-on-one as well to strengthen, to soothe the autonomic as well?
Absolutely. If I'm working with a patient and it's something as simple as, we're working on their wrist or their shoulder or their hip or their back or whatever. And as I'm working, I'm feeling increased tone in the system, increased stress in the system. I'll stop everything I'm doing from a manual therapy perspective and sit down with them and start, talking about, what are they eating that's inflammatory? What are they doing that's non-inflammatory for their body? Can they even diaphragmatically breathe? It's amazing. It's amazing in our industrialized countries with the level of stress that we have, how many individuals lose the ability just to simply diaphragmatically breathe.
Yeah.
And so I'll sit down with them and teach them some easy techniques to calm their nervous system down, teach them some breathing techniques. And then when we're ready, get back to whatever it was that we were trying to make more efficient from a musculoskeletal perspective.
That's powerful. I mean, it's almost like you're a health coach, you're a nutritionist, you're a PT, you're an educator, and we really are looking at the whole body. Now, you mentioned Ayurveda. Did you use that as a basis for your nutritional counseling, or how do you incorporate that in?
And I do not. Most of my training relative to nutritional counseling has been, I've done more of a holistic approach. I am certainly not certified in Ayurvedic nutrition at all. However, that's where having a good community comes into play. I have at least 3 Ayurvedic nutritionists in the area that I live that I rely on heavily. My nutrition training has mostly been still more into what I would say the scientific realm of things. I haven't done a tremendous amount of Ayurvedic training. Some of the nutrition training I've done is through integrative nutrition. So it's a matter of, again, looking at the body as a whole and treating whatever we put in our body as fuel, as it needs to be something that's not inflaming us, and it needs to be something that's healing us.
Absolutely.
So I don't have any sort of nutrition background to literally sit down with a patient and talk about macronutrients. I'm talking more from a pain and inflammation side.
Yeah. And inflammation really is the key, you know.
It is the key. It is
so
absolutely the key.
Just having that conversation, you know, and if you're listening and you're trying to weave in how is diet, we're going to have a couple of people talking about this for sure on the summit. How is diet playing into my nervous system, my response, my stress level is huge. And a lot of times, you know, if you don't know where to start, just reflect. Of course, you know, connect with somebody who maybe can help you, a health coach or whatever. But just reflect on, just get like a food journal or something and just start thinking, okay, well, how do I feel after I eat this? A lot of times it's just a few reactionary foods can, you know, heighten.
And we're so disconnected to what we put in our mouth, just like we're so disconnected to how we move our bodies and how we think, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, there's a reason that they call it mindful exercises or mindfulness, because, you know, if all we did is stopped and took a breath and thought about what we were putting in our mouth before we did it, it would be a whole different world, you know. But we mindlessly eat, like we mindlessly sit and binge on food or you know, electronic media or whatever the situation is. And, you know, sometimes, you know, something as simple as, you know, saying, think about what you're eating, slow down, you know, reduce the sugar. And then, you know, think about when you're putting something in your mouth, is this nutritious? Is it going to nourish my system? Is it going to give me fuel? Or is it going to impede my system? You know, we've stepped quite a far bit away from that at this point.
We're going. And what I hear you saying is just take that moment to slow down.
That's accurate.
And that will really hinder or help our nervous system. And a big, huge component of the nervous system, autonomic, you're going to go into all that, is something that a lot of people don't really even know what it is. And it's called the vagus nerve.
Right.
Let's get into the vagus nerve. Why is it important? What's it connected to? All that stuff.
Perfect. So let's start with, first and foremost, kind of giving you a little bit of an anatomy lesson on the nervous system. That's what I like to say. If we took our entire nervous system can be broken down into two pieces.
Okay.
The central nervous system, which is our brain and our brainstem and our spinal cord. Okay. And then our peripheral nervous system, peripheral meaning away from. So that would be any of the nerves that exit our brain, brainstem, or spinal cord and supply or innervate, is the term we use in the scientific or medical world, part of our body. So when we look at, those are the two parts of the nervous system. There is a component of the nervous system called the autonomic nervous system, ANS. And it is the portion of our nervous system that we truly do not have volitional control. So a peripheral nerve, say the nerve that supplies my bicep, I can say bicep contract, and my bicep contracts. Your autonomic nervous system, you can't say heart rate, slow down, stomach, digest. But if you learn methods of controlling your autonomic nervous system, then you can start to have indirect control of the system that is autonomous. And so the autonomic nervous system is really broken up into two pieces. There is the sympathetic nervous system, which is often known as the stress system or the stress response. It's that flight or fight or freeze response that we talk about. And then the parasympathetic nervous system. And the parasympathetic nervous system, think of like rest and digest. It's kind of like our relaxation response. And so those are the two parts of our autonomic nervous system. Now, the parasympathetic nervous system has components that drive all of our viscera, our guts, our lungs, our heart. So the things that we say, no, we don't have direct control of, but if we could get a little bit better control of this parasympathetic nervous system,
Yeah.
then we can actually help ourselves have that relaxation response.
Right.
And so I explain to patients and clients that when we think of our autonomic nervous system, we have something called cranial nerves. So this is your cranium,
Yep.
and there are nerves that come from your brain stem, which is part of your central nervous system,
Yep.
that exit the cranium and supply your body.
Okay.
Of those nerves, some of them are sympathetic,
Okay.
think flight or fight response.
Fight or flight. Yep.
Some of those are parasympathetic,
Okay.
think rest and digest.
Okay.
So what we know is that we specifically have 4 of those cranial nerves that have a more dominant parasympathetic response.
Okay.
And those 4 nerves are, you've already named the most important one, but the 4 nerves are cranial nerve number 3, which is your ocular motor nerve. So think you moving your eyes with your head steady, right? Or you turning your head with your eyes steady and controlling the muscles that surround your eyes. Ocular meaning eye, motor moving muscles.
Okay.
The second most important parasympathetic nerve that's part of the cranial nervous system is your facial nerve, which is cranial nerve number 7. Now, here's the thing about a stress response, okay? If you did something as simple as smile, and I don't mean like fake smile, I mean smile.
Like a real
See
smile.
that you're smiling even in your eyes. You're eliciting the muscles of your facial nerve. You're intentionally firing up a parasympathetic response. The third cranial nerve, I know I'm geeking out for a second, but just bear with me.
We're going for it. Yeah, I hope you have your pens and papers, but I forgot to tell you, but you can you can replay this. Geek out. We are geeking out because this is really important stuff. You know, we got to learn a little bit of this stuff so we can know what we're doing when we go to strengthen and heal. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The third, I think, important parasympathetic muscle is called your glossopharyngeal muscle, which is the 9th cranial nerve. But have you ever heard someone say that they've got a lump in their throat?
Yeah.
So that's somebody that's having difficulty swallowing because of tension, and they're not allowing themselves to relax through their throat and allow themselves to have that relaxation response.
Right there. Okay.
And then the 4th nerve, which is the beauty, it's really kind of known as, you know, the key nerve to the parasympathetic nerve is the vagus nerve, which is cranial nerve number 10.
Okay. Wow.
Now, Vegas, V-A-G-U-S, not Vegas, the city that you go to party in, right? But vagus nerve, if we look at the Latin terminology of vagus nerve, it really means the wanderer. And the reason that the vagus nerve is called the wanderer is because it literally supplies all over our body. So it has control to areas of your neck. It is the chief supplier of control of your heart, specifically your heart rate and how your heart rate varies.
Wow.
Your lungs, your respiration rate, your guts, the ability of you to digest your food. So many of the organs of your body are regulated and controlled by this beautiful vagus nerve.
Wow.
And so it's a wonderful, beautiful nerve to research, to study, and then to understand how you can take this nerve and help clients and patients improve their stress response.
Okay.
So when I think about the vagus nerve, the one thing that I tell people is most of us think that stress is where?
In the mind or
in
emotions. Or, in the head.
Yeah, right. But the really cool thing about the vagus nerve, unlike a lot of nerves of our body, is when we have a nerve, okay, that nerve has what's called ascending fibers, which means something in the body is communicating upward to the brain.
Okay.
And then that nerve also has descending fibers, which means the brain is telling that nerve to do something in the body.
In the single nerve, ascending.
A single nerve.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what's really super cool about the vagus nerve is the brain is only telling the body to be controlled by about 20% of that nerve. What that means is 80% of the vagus nerve is your body telling your brain that it's either stressed or it's not stressed.
Wow. Wow.
That's
80%.
insane. 80%. So in the medical world and in the healthcare world, a lot of time we think of the vagus nerve as our caretaker nerve or our safety nerve.
I can understand that. Yeah.
Right? Because if we have 80% input coming up to our brain and telling our brain, you're either being chased by a bear, run, flight or fight, or you're safe, everything is okay, calm down, relax.
Yeah.
Right? That's really important for us to understand, because we can do so much externally to tell our brain everything's going to be okay.
Everything's going to be okay. Now, quick question.
Sure.
You're saying that 80% is via the vagus nerve from body to brain. Now, that's everywhere in your body, or
wherever the vagus nerve supplied. So I'm talking literally going all the way down to your pelvic floor and thinking of the tone and tension in your butt and your pelvic floor. We've got a gigantic nervous system that sits on the front of our spine. It's called your anterior sympathetic chain, right? And so there are pieces of that vagus nerve that are communicating everywhere, all the way up your spine, your liver, your pancreas, your lungs, your guts, your heart, all of it is communicating up to your brain way more than what your brain is actually telling your body what to do.
So, like, for example, you get into a situation and we just automatically tense up, like you said, the pelvic floor, like maybe we'll tense that area.
Exactly.
That's going to send a signal via the vagus nerve to the brain saying,
run,
what happens when it gets
fight,
to the brain, and it goes
fight,
like
freeze.
Right. That's the avenue of fight or flight right there. Wow.
Right.
Wow.
But at the same time, if the body is relaxed and the body is safe and you're in a safe environment and you know that you don't have a lot of internal and external stressors, you don't have pain in your body, right? Equally, you're giving your body good fuel, you're giving it good nutrition. Equally, that vagus nerve can say to the brain, you're safe. Now it's time to rest and digest, right?
Wow.
So when we think about the vagus nerve, we have ways to evaluate if our vagus nerve is functioning well. If it's telling us to relax well, if it's telling us to fight or flight well. Actually called vagal tone.
Vagal tone. So it can get fatigued. It can get off just like everything else, right? Like with
accurate.
Okay. Vagal tone. So vagal tone can be off, i.e. vagus nerve functioning can be
dysfunctional.
How can that happen? Like chronic stress, or like what are the
everything? So if we think about persistent or chronic pain, if we think about an internal stressor in our body that's bothering us, like we're not happy about something with ourselves, we're not happy with our finances, we're fearful of something, we've got negative thoughts, we've got negative beliefs, right? So those are internal stressors. External stressors, you're worried about something happening to a family member, you're worried about sickness, you're worried about your job, you're worried about a pandemic, right? So all of these external stressors that we have no control over, all of this chronic stress stops us from having efficient vagal tone. And so when our vagus nerve is inefficient, then our body all of a sudden cannot find the time to be in its relaxed state, and it is hypervigilant. So what happens is the slightest little stress response and your body thinks you're being chased by a bear because your vagal tone is too high. So your reactionary response all of a sudden becomes much, much more heightened.
Yep. Wow. And that goes across the board. I'm assuming like it's not so much you might fly off the handle externally,
right? But
also I'm assuming, correct me if this is wrong, your reaction in terms of like maybe gastric acids being overproduced, or imbalanced hormones, maybe even autoimmune condition responses.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
You cannot physically sit there and say, okay, I feel that internal baroreceptor telling me that my stomach is off.
Right.
It just doesn't happen.
No, you
Let
don't
me
know.
tell you something that's super cool.
Tell us.
Take a deep inhale right now. When you take a nice deep inhale, that is your sympathetic nervous system firing. Your heart rate increases, your blood pressure increases, your respiration rate increases.
Yeah.
Then take a nice, slow, long exhale. That's a parasympathetic response. Your respiration rate decreases, your blood pressure decreases, your heart rate decreases, your stomach begins to start digesting food. So believe it or not, the variability between taking an inhale and taking an exhale is a way for us to be able to know if our vagus nerve and our vagal tone is efficient or dysfunctional.
Wow.
And that term is called heart rate variability. Heart rate variability is when you take an inhale, sympathetic nervous system fires, exhale, parasympathetic nervous system fires. Is that a nice, easy, balanced system? Or on those inhales and those sympathetic responses, is the variability really, really small? And so we've got ways that we can start to evaluate the vagal tone. How stressed is our body, rather than trying to pretend to be like, what does my stomach tell me right now? What does my adrenal system tell me right now? What does my hormone? We have no control of that. We have control of our breath.
Yes.
And that's the place I always tell people to begin.
Awesome. Quick question, and then we're going to get into some exercises, but I have a quick question for you. A lot of people, they don't even realize it. I did this for years, shallow breathing. So you feel like if you're shallow breathing, we really step into how you're breathing just normally. It feels like, first of all, maybe you're not even breathing at all, but it's like, it's the same rate, but how would that affect shallow breathing? How would that affect HRV, heart variability, and vagus nerve tone?
Absolutely. So you're shallow breathing, right? So here's your breath. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. The variability between your respiration rate and your inhales and exhales is very, very low. It's very small.
Right.
And so when the variability is very small, I said very twice there, sorry. But when the variability in your heart rate is very small and your respiration rate is very small, that makes your vagus nerve be on a heightened alert. So that tone all of a sudden is dysfunctional. And rather than you just kind of being aware if you hear a dog bark or hear a car crash, all of a sudden now you start to immediately hold your breath, you tense up all your muscles, and you start this big stress response because you're so already heightened in your responses.
Wow.
So when you've got somebody that isn't relaxing breathing, they're not naturally diaphragmatic breathing, and you see that almost like a hyperventilation, their vagus nerve at the same time is hypervigilant. So it's going to overreact to any reaction or response that happens in you or around you. Wow.
And the way you described the vagus nerve is so beautiful. Almost made me cry. It's like, I know we can't consciously give, well, maybe we can't give our vagus nerve love. We can imagine it, but I'm going to
teach you a wonderful exercise to give your vagus nerve love.
Let's do it right now. Let's give our vagus nerve some love.
Let's give our vagus nerve some love. Okay. So first and foremost, please understand, I am not making up any of these exercises. A lot of the stuff I'm going to show you really comes from some fantastic research. So I need to shout out a couple of people first. Number one is Stanley Porges. Stanley Porges really is the originator of what's called the polyvagal theory. Poly meaning many, vagal because we know it is the wanderer, right? It's the caretaker of our body. So I would highly tell anybody that was interested to pick up his book and take a read. However, it is a heavy scientifically based read. He gets very, very in depth with our vagus nerve being our nerve of social engagement.
Wow.
A little bit of an easier read, so a place you might want to begin is with an individual called Stanley Rosenberg. He has an excellent book out called Accessing the Healing Powers of the Vagus Nerve. That's what it's called. Accessing the Healing Powers of the Vagus Nerve. And it's a fabulous book, well written for any lay person to read and be able to truly understand this wonderful nerve. So we're going to begin with an exercise to relax and take care of our vagus nerve. So a quick little bit of anatomy for you, okay? If you turn your neck, you're going to see this big, gigantic muscle on the side of your neck right here. It attaches to just above the back of your ear, and it comes all the way down and attaches to what's called your sternum, which is the center bone in your chest, and your clavicle, which is your collarbone. So it's a pretty long muscle, and you have that muscle on both sides of your body. Laying directly underneath that muscle, called the sternocleidomastoid muscle, SCM for short, is the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve exits your cranium back behind your ear. Remember, it comes from your brainstem, and it comes and lays all the way down behind that beautiful muscle, because that muscle is protecting that precious little nerve. But here's what happens. That beautiful sternocleidomastoid muscle that I just mentioned, it's innervated by another cranial nerve called your accessory nerve, and it is a sympathetic nerve. So when your body is in chronic stress or heightened sensitivity, that muscle starts to tense and tighten. So when that muscle starts to tense and tighten, and you've seen these people, right? They're bulging out of their neck. Those four little precious vagus nerves that are sitting behind that muscle, they're too being tensed.
They're tensed.
They're tensed. So there's a beautiful exercise that Stanley Rosenberg goes over called a salamander exercise. And the intention of the exercise is to lengthen the sternocleidomastoid muscle. And by doing so, it creates relaxation and less resistance to the vagus nerve. So let's give it a try. So sit up nice and tall. And as you sit up nice and tall, lengthen your neck and settle your chin. And then gently let your head side bend to the left. Then take your chin and your nose and slowly rotate your head upward to the right. Now, when you side bend your head to the left and you rotate it to the right, you're lengthening the right sternocleidomastoid muscle. You're putting relaxation and releasing tension into that right vagus nerve. Now, unrotate your head, unside bend your head, and then let's try it to the opposite side. So if you sit up nice and tall, lengthen your neck, settle your chin, and you take your head and you side bend it to the right, and then you rotate your head upward to the left. Now you're lengthening the left sternocleidomastoid muscle. And as you're putting tension into that muscle, as it relaxes, it will begin to relax the left vagus nerve.
Whew, I need to work on that. I feel it tense. Tension. Oh my goodness.
Exactly. Now unrotate your head and unside bend your head. Now, when you put tension into that muscle, I tell people you're not doing an aggressive stretch, right? So we're not trying to manipulate our upper cervical spine. So you're not, doing these types of things. It's a matter of gentle length and gentle rotation, and you'll feel it putting tension into the system. Generally, I recommend my patients and my clients to hold the position, and guess what? Take slow, deep, diaphragmatic breaths. Remember what I've already told you. The exhalation is part of the parasympathetic nervous system. So if you focus on a longer exhale, you're tapping into more relaxation. So as you do the stretch, all you want to do is place your hands on your belly, take a nice deep inhale in, and a slower exhale out. And as you exhale out, just allow it to be longer than the inhale. Do 1, 2, maybe 3 breaths max, and then unrotate your head, unside bend your head, and immediately you'll start to feel that your body feels more relaxed because you've taken the tension off of the vagus nerve.
Does it matter nose breathing or mouth breathing when you do that?
Yes. So remember, the glossopharyngeal nerve is a parasympathetic nerve.
Yeah.
So we want to always limit our breathing out and in through our mouth to when we have to. Okay. So what you want to do, and think more from a Eastern medicine yogic breathing side, allow the air to inhale and exhale through your nostrils so that you're able to fill that air with some nice good nitric oxide as you're inhaling and exhaling, which further prolongs a better relaxation response. Anytime we inhale and inhale, particularly through our mouth, we're not humidifying that air. We're not allowing anything to be added to that air. And it is a little bit more toxic for our system. So definitely through the nose.
Definitely through the nose. And then just to address, so many people have neck pain. Is this, for a lot of people, part of the issue?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the other thing that I would say, remember this sternocleidomastoid muscle, it is innervated or supplied by that axillary nerve. Well, this big gigantic muscle back here that people always are tense in, they have trigger points in, called your upper trapezius muscle.
Yeah.
It's innervated by the same sympathetic nerve.
Okay.
And so if our body is stressed, if our mind is stressed, if we're internally stressed and we don't even know it, we're going to be keeping tension not only in this muscle that we know restricts and puts tension onto our vagus nerve, but we'll also be putting tension into one of the biggest and baddest muscles that becomes dysfunctional related to our neck posture and neck pain.
Oh, yeah, and posture is huge. Oh my goodness. Trudy, did you have another practice for us? We've got a few more minutes.
Yeah. I really want to build upon that salamander exercise. So here's the thing. In Stanley Rosenberg's book, he really goes into a lot of detail about how to do full salamander, half salamander, different positions, standing, sitting, hands and knees, laying on your belly, laying on your stomach. But I want to allow you to think for a second about those other parasympathetic nerves. So the ocular motor nerves, right? So when you're doing the salamander exercise, putting the tension into that sternocleidomastoid muscle, allow yourself to use your eyes at the same time. So give it a try for the second. If we do the left vagus nerve, left sternocleidomastoid muscle, so gently lengthen your neck, settle your chin, side bend your head to the right, rotate your head upward. Now you're already putting length into that muscle, but think about this for a second. If you also take your eyes and you gaze all the way up and left, now you're adding that ocular motor nerve. Let's take it one step further, you guys. Keep that gentle stretch into the sternocleidomastoid. Gaze up as far as you can to get the ocular motor nerve fired up. And facial nerve. Can you put a smile on your face? Right? Nobody's watching you. You're all watching me right now.
Right.
But now just put a smile on your face. Laugh if you want to. Laughing is exhalation. That's parasympathetic. Or take a nice, slow, deep exhale on a diaphragmatic breath. Then slowly bring your head back to the center. You have combined so many good things doing that all together. So sternocleidomastoid stretch, vagus nerve release, ocular motor movements with your eyes to release tension on the ocular motor nerve, facial nerve expression, allowing you to get a buildup of parasympathetic response. And then as you're doing that diaphragmatic breathing, allowing that exhalation to be the really prominent component so that you get that parasympathetic nervous system firing.
I love it. Really quick, you mentioned trigeminal nerve, or maybe you didn't, but tell us a little bit about that, how that fits in.
So a lot of people ask me, what about the trigeminal nerve?
Yeah.
The trigeminal nerve isn't a parasympathetic nerve, it's a sympathetic nerve. So
Okay.
it's a nerve more on that flight or fight response, right?
Okay. Okay.
So there's a really fun Eastern medicine acupressure technique that I talk my patients and clients through.
Awesome.
And so if we think about the trigeminal nerve, if you go to the side of your nostril, like kind of think about where your laugh line is. Yeah, right there. Right there. Yeah. And come a little bit higher up. So you're right next to your nostril. You've got it. That's actually an acupuncture point called large intestine 20.
Okay.
And what's happening when you put your finger on that area right next to your nostril is you're actually putting compression, or you're touching a branch of that trigeminal nerve.
Wow.
And so what you can do, and this is what I work on with my patients, is I tell them just a small amount of pressure inward, press in until you can feel that you're just about to feel bone.
It's a little tender.
It's a little tender. Yeah.
Yeah.
So once you're in there and you're just about to feel bone,
yeah,
you're right on that branch of that trigeminal nerve. You can sustain your pressure there.
Okay.
And then I usually tell my patients, can you put a smile on your face?
You breathe.
Can you breathe and take nice slow inhales and even slower exhales? The thing about doing acupressure is when you're doing it, you want to make sure that you're doing it for at least 20 seconds before you let go. So that's really easy. I just tell my patients to do it for 3 to 5 slow, deep diaphragmatic breaths. You do one side and then you just do the other side. So one quick way to kind of relax one of the sympathetic nerves, the trigeminal nerve, is to do that little acupressure point. It's really helpful sometimes for individuals that, you're talking to them and the first thing that you can tell is that they're stressed. You can see the tension in all of the muscles of their face. You can see that they're breathing shallow. They're talking fast and not allowing themselves the opportunity to take a nice, slow, deep inhale. Sometimes literally all I will start with is take a nice, slow, deep inhale, show them how to calm down that branch of that trigeminal nerve using that acupuncture point. And then I like to get into literally working on their vagus nerve. I am a manual therapist. I use these all day long, literally working on that vagus nerve where it descends along the side of the sternocleidomastoid. It calms individuals down so beautifully.
I mean, these are, be gentle with yourself, but these are actually things that you could do yourself. Absolutely. And I always tell people, if you feel silly doing it, give yourself a little science experiment, measure your stress level, your pain, your discomfort first.
Yeah.
1 to 10.
Yeah.
10 being the highest. And then after the exercise, see if it's gone down a little bit. I've noticed at least a 4.10 going down.
And listen, I will tell you, I am my own N of 1 when it comes to research. So there's so many cool devices out there now, right? Like Elite HRV, which is a company I have no ownership in, by the way, but just like a pulse oximeter that sits on your finger, they make a device that sits on your finger and measures your heart rate variability.
Love it.
Apple watches and smartphone watches and Oura rings, which are these devices that you can use to kind of track your respiration rate and your heart rate. They're all measuring your heart rate variability. So I have literally been stressed, come home from work, pet my dogs, sat down in a chair, did a couple of diaphragmatic breaths, worked on large intestine 1, worked on salamander exercise, gave myself a big laugh, added some eye movements to my salamander exercise, and believe it or not, my heart rate variability skyrocketed. The higher the heart rate variability, the healthier the vagus.
The better it is. Yeah. So good. We're actually going to have at least one person, maybe 2, but definitely one person who used to work with heart math.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Well, there you go. So see, you'll have somebody talking all about all of that beautiful stuff.
It's so amazing. And again, it's something that's so simple. I mean, those devices are really not that expensive.
No, they're not.
You can measure, and this is a measurable result that you can see. But I mean, that practices that you shared with us, you can do it with or without HRV.
Absolutely.
And you can just feel the difference. I mean, you can
just feel the relaxation in your system. Something as simple as just placing your hand on your belly. And then naturally, if all of a sudden you're now diaphragmatically breathing, versus
So
chest
good.
breathing, you've
good.
relaxed your body,
Trudy, this has been truly, truly amazing. I love how you just broke it down in something that could be a little complicated.
Right.
This the central nervous system. I mean, when you were talking, I could actually visualize it, and it was so simple, it was so precise. Really appreciate it. I know that our viewers got so much out of that. Thank you so much, Trudy. Is there anything else that you want to add? You want to leave us with before we say goodbye?
No, all I would say is these are simple techniques and exercises to do. It doesn't take much to make a big change to the stress our body is under. Yes, do we need to eliminate internal and external stressors in our life? Absolutely. Take a day or two away from your phone. Definitely take a week, a month away from news. But doing something as simple as fueling our body well, hydrating our body, and taking the time to do some simple breathing exercises or simple exercises to take tension off of a nerve is so easy to do.
And you don't have to and you can put these practices in place every day. And I believe doing them every day helps you to not get in crisis in the first place, because you have more access to your your frontal lobe, that system that runs up and down your body that just communicates. So thank you.
I tell my patients all the time, just remember that your body gives more feedback to your brain in stressful situations than your brain gives to your body. So tap into your body, become aware of it. From the simple thing of, are you clenching your butt right now? Right? Let it go. Are you hardening your abdominals right now? Let it go. Yeah. It's the simple things that we don't take the time, because we don't take the time, right? We're mindlessly running 100 miles an hour. And if we could just stop and literally take a breath and take a pulse of our system, we could manage stress so much better than we are.
So simple, so easy. It's just so easy to do, so easy to not do. And why not do it? So
easy to not do. That's a good point. I like to say that. Yeah.
It's easy to do, easy to not do. So choose to do it. Why not? Throughout your day. I love it, Trudy. Thank you. We are going to put a link to your YouTube channel, and you're going to continue to put more amazing videos.
I will. They will keep coming. I promise.
Oh yeah, we love it. It's absolutely wonderful. We love your expertise. We love your explanations. Thank you so much, Trudy.
You are welcome.
Thank you. This is Nikki with Victim to Victorious. Put these practices into place. How are you going to include these every day in your life? And also, if you come against a stressor, you can do these. You could just be talking to someone and your fingers next to your nose. So what? You know what I mean?
They'll just think you're scratching your nose, but what you're doing is actually compressing a branch of your trigeminal nerve. Who knew, right?
Who knew? So awesome. All right, this is Nikki, and we'll see you next time on Victim to Victorious Summit. Bye now.
Bye-bye.